Good evening, everyone. I was just sitting here thinking how I know that I have an intro. I'm going to learn prayerfully next week how to work this intro thing. It's been a week. I've had some relatives in from out of town because one of my other relatives was in the hospital. So I was being a little bit of a chauffeur this week, and I didn't get a chance to earlier on continue on with our series. But I made it a point to make sure that now that he's out of the hospital, that I did this tonight. So we're going to talk about the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, this section of the Project 2025 agenda was very, very long. This one was a long one. May have been the longest one so far because there's so many pieces to it. So you've got health and then you've got human services put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you, as I normally do, the preamble, and then we're going to get into the different sections of it. The Department of Health and Human Services section of the Project 2025 document was written by Roger Servino. Don't know who he is, but you can probably look him up. He's some muckety muck in the health arena. Anyway, we have, for good or ill, the Department of Health and Human Services activities personally impact the lives of more Americans than do any other federal agency. And I can see that that's true. The chapters here and the recommendations are limited to those divisions that most need reform and address wherever possible um, 5 cross-cutting goals. So they're basically telling you that this thing is so vast that they only kind of whittled it down to a few of them, which is still a lot of them. First goal that they have on here is protecting life, conscious, and body integrity. Now, I said to myself, what does that mean? So I'm reading, the secretary should pursue a robust agenda to protect the fundamental right to life, protect conscious rights, and uphold body integrity rooted in biological realities, not ideology. So it looks like the way that they're going right at the beginning is protecting people from having to deal with these agendas with identity. They want to do that. It talks a little bit in here about uh, not having people that are pregnant be able to terminate. And it also talks about people and their ideologies about who they are basic versus their biology. That's one of their goals. The second goal that's on here is empowering patient choices and provider autonomy. And I definitely do agree with this. Basic economics holds, and I'm gonna move this up a little bit. Basic economics holds that costs tend to decrease and quality options tend to increase when there is a robust and free competition in the provision of goods and services, which is true. Where there's competition, you get better service and better price. Healthcare is no exception. I agree. Healthcare reform should be patient centered and market based and should empower individuals to control their healthcare related dollars and decisions. So I'm on board with that one. I want to be able to control where I put my money. I don't want to have to go to a certain place and see a certain doctor and wait for 4 hours. My appointment, one time I went to the doctor and I literally told them I was going to charge them an hourly rate. So I had an appointment, let's say it was 11. It is now 1 o'clock and I am leaving, but I'm going to send you a bill. So, we have these situations where these behemoth health care institutes or organizations, they don't care about our time and they don't care about our health, which I see that a lot, and especially you in certain communities. So I'm going to go on here. It says, here's a solution to the situation with the healthcare: reducing burdens of regulatory compliance, unleashing innovations in healthcare delivery, ceasing interference in the daily lives of patients and providers, allowing alternative insurance coverage options, and returning control of healthcare dollars to patients, making decisions with their providers about their healthcare, treatments, and services. I love it. I love it because these are our dollars. And I hate to see when people have little or no choice for their health, especially, but for anything to do with their money. So people that are forced into a certain situation, they don't have a car and they're forced to go to a certain grocery store that has rats running around in it. I don't know if you all, I did a video a long time ago about a restaurant that had rats running around in the back of it. So, but that's a shame. I'm going to move on to something more pleasant. Uh, their next goal number 3, is promoting stable and flourishing married families. Now, this is interesting because, again, we're talking about the Heritage Foundation and a whole bunch of other conservative groups. So they want to provide stable households. They say families comprised of a married father, mother, and their family and their children. And that is the foundation of a well-ordered nation and healthy society. I can't find any information that says any different. That's the foundation of a country, is the family. Now, whether you want to argue about what is a family, I'm not arguing about that. What they're talking about in this document is the traditional family. Unfortunately, family policies and programs under the current administration are wrought with agenda items focusing on other agendas, subsidizing single motherhood, which I don't like, de-incentivizing work, and penalizing marriage. These policies should be repealed and replaced by policies that support the formation of stable married nuclear families. Now, that sounds good and everything, but the devil is in the details, because what is it that you're going to do? I don't agree with them snatching funds away from people that, haven't gotten themselves together. There are certain circumstances where you want to give people a helping hand, and they don't say specifically what they want to do with this situation. Working fathers are essential to the well-being and development of their children. I totally agree, and the statistics agree. Well, I agree with the statistics that a father in the home causes a whole bunch of different things not to be, like dropout rates go down, teen pregnancy rates go down, imprisonment rates go down when there's a father in the home. So I do agree with that one. But the United States is experiencing a crisis of fatherlessness that is running our children's futures. We have something in our community called the school to prison pipeline, and it's real, y'all. How many of you know what that means? A school to prison pipeline. Put a 1 in the chat if you know what that means, and put a 2 in the chat if you put a 1 and a 2 if you know what it means and it has affected your family. This is something that we do have to deal with. A society is not going to be able to run without the family in place. As a matter of fact, the situation that's going on now with the repopulation of certain countries with immigration is all about these countries not being able to sustain their own population because of the low birth rate. And people are not having a lot of kids because they don't have an incentive to have a lot of kids. They see a lot of poverty, they see a lot of hopelessness, and they stop having kids. And that's not just in the United States. That's specifically other countries like Japan. Yeah, I see a lot of 1s and 2s, and y'all know what the school to prison pipeline is, and it's affected your family. A lot of people have done, and this problem can be fixed. And I like the idea that these people have a solution for this problem. We would just have to get deeper into it to see how their solution affects people, and is it something that's going to be worthwhile, or is there something that's going to hurt them more? This is one of my main concerns, you all. I'm really pro-family. I see what's going on around here. I watch my children. I have grandchildren now, and a mother's going to fight for her children, and so is a grandmother is going to fight for her children and grandchildren. But when you see what's going on in the schools, when I ran track, I think I might have mentioned this before, I ran track all the way through my freshman year in college. I ran the sprints, and then in college, in high school, I ran the 100-meter hurdles, and in college, I ran the 100-meter hurdles. And after my freshman year, I realized that I wasn't good enough for the Olympics, and I wasn't going to be on the Cheerios box, so I needed to start working on my studies. So after that, I just watched track. But now, poor young ladies having to compete against people that weren't born women, and and they're not beating these people. There was a race that I saw that I mentioned before. I think, I don't know. I talked to so many different people where the person that wanted to be they let him run with the girls, and he wanted to be a girl, and he beat them in all the races. And someone looked at the numbers, and he would have come in 52nd if he had run with the men. He would have come in 52nd, but he beat all the girls. So something wrong with that here. And I don't want my granddaughter to have to deal with competing against someone that has different hormones and a whole bunch of testosterone. But that's what they're doing here in this document, saying we need to start concentrating on the nuclear family. The next one they have is preparing for they call it this now, preparing for the next health emergency. They know that there's going to be another health emergency. We know that there's going to be another health emergency. So here's what it said. The C-19 pandemic demonstrated how catastrophic a micromanaging, misinformed, centralized, and politicized federal government can be. Wow. They're not holding any punches here. Basic human rights, medical choice, and the doctor-patient relationship were trampled without scientific justification and for extended periods of time. Excess deaths, not due to C-19, skyrocketed because of forced lockdowns, isolation, jab-related mass firings, and colossal disruptions of the economy and daily rhythms of life. Now, we all know that that is totally true, totally true. Now, what they're saying is, for the sake of democratic accountability, we must know with clarity what will trigger the next emergency declaration, and just as important, what will trigger its end. So how many of you are with that? Put a one in the chat if you're with that. I'm not with, finding out later that the 6 feet thing was arbitrary, just made up, and all these other things that we've been finding out. We found out so much information after the fact that it's mind-boggling, and people are still being affected. I talk to people just about every day where they're having relatives with different situations, and they stem from 2020, 2021. Here we're going to continue. Unaccountable bureaucrats like Tony Fauci should never again have such broad, unchecked power to issue health guidelines that will certainly be the basis of federal and state mandates. Never again should public health bureaucrats be allowed to hide information, ignore information, or mislead the public concerning the efficacy or dangers associated with any recommended health interventions. Whew, really? That's very strong, but I'm right with them. This is important information that I hope passes no matter who gets in office. This needs to be something that is set in stone. What happened in 2021 should never happen again. 2020 was a thief as far as I'm concerned, and the thief lies right there in what these people are talking about. The next goal for the Department of Health and Human Services: instituting greater transparency, accountability, and oversight. The next administration should guard against the regulatory capture of our public health agencies by pharmaceutical companies, insurers, hospital conglomerates, and related economic interests that these agencies are meant to regulate. We must erect robust firewalls to mitigate the obvious financial conflict of interest. I just watched a video. I watched 2 videos in the last 2 days about the medical industry and how much pharma is involved in what we see and what we don't see concerning medications. The one I saw today was really deep because it was talking about a medicine for cancer that all of the trials, it failed. It didn't work. But somehow, some way, it still got passed. And it was $2,600 per dose. It was an injection. And people were coming in, desperate people Desperate people that wanted to be healed were coming in and getting these injections that cost $2,600 an injection. And one of the guys that was kind of in the research on it, he was taken aback, and he said, this shouldn't have gone through. This is not working. How did this get passed and it's not working? And one of the pharmaceutical representatives said, when you're trying to put your child through Stanford and you're looking at that waterfront property, it is working. That's what he said. So that says to me, forget you. And I'm not using the curse words, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Forget about you. I want to make sure that my children go to the universities that are the higher universities. And I want to live on, some beachfront property or some waterfront property. And I want a lake, and I want to live on the golf course and all that. I want. That is what we call the love of money. The love of money being the root of all evil. And I'm going to finish up that one before we go to the next one. We must shut and lock the revolving door between government and big pharma regulators. Wait a minute. Between government and big pharma regulators should have a long cooling off period on their contracts. 15 years would not be too long. That prevents them from working for companies that they have regulated. That just makes common sense, y'all. Similarly, pharmaceutical company executives should be restricted from moving from industry into positions with regulatory agencies. All that kind of makes common sense to me. But all of these agencies are a revolving door. They start out with the company, and then they get out and get in government because they know what they need to help the company achieve to get more money. Then they go back to the company. It's just a revolving door for them. I'm going to go to the chat before we go to the next portion of the Department of Health and Human Services. What were the names of the documentaries? And I do want to tell you that. So I'm going to try to look on my phone to the people that sent them to me and pull it up, and hopefully it won't make any noise. Oh, one of them was called Big Pharma is Fooling You Again, and You Don't Even Know. Let me see if I can tell you I'm going to try to stop the noise. It's by You're Not Alone. So the person that put, no. Actually, I think the person, this is a Tucker Carlson interview. And I know people don't like Tucker Carlson. If you don't like him, doesn't matter. This interview with a doctor is really good. So it's a Tucker Carlson interview from about 6 months ago. And the title of it is Big Pharma is Fooling You Again, and You Don't Even Know It. And one of the major things that I gathered from this particular documentary was that when these pharmaceutical companies have commercials on television, their first and foremost agenda is not to get you to buy that drug. Their first and foremost agenda is to pay that media company so that media company can be beholden to the pharmaceutical company. I'm going to go after the second one, and I think I'm glad I'm remembering where I got these from because people sent them to me. And I don't always watch stuff, but right now we need to be very, very cognizant of the fact that our health is in jeopardy. So the next one is very, very interesting. There we go. It's called Greed and the Pharmaceutical Industry. And the person that's being interviewed is Ron Piana. His name is Piana. The YouTube channel that it's on is called Soft White Underbelly. This guy that is the creator of Soft White Underbelly is a photographer / videographer. And he interviews people. He just sits down with them and have them talk. And he sat down with this guy, Ron, and he told all that was going on in the cancer industry. And that story that I just told you about those injections that didn't work, it came from this particular. And after this is over, I'll try to remember to post them in the chat so that people can get a hold to them. But those are the two documentaries. When I have free time or when I just need to decompress, I watch documentaries and stuff. Sometimes I'll get into the nature ones, like the animals and Wild Kingdom type things, just to. But I don't watch foolishness. I don't have time to sit and watch foolishness. So let's see what else is about here. It's about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. I remember that song, and that's what I thought about when I saw that video, the one about from Soft White Underbelly. I kept thinking of that, and it's disgusting that I don't know how they sleep at night, you guys. I don't know how they sleep at night, knowing that they're passing drugs that don't work just to get all this money. I mean, what are they going to do when they die? Are they going to put it in a vault and drag the vault behind the casket or whatever? I don't know. It and maybe they're trying to build a legacy for themselves and then have their families. But my Bible says the wealth of the righteous is stored up. The wealth of the unrighteous is stored up for the righteous. So they're not going to keep it. So I did tell you the names of the documentaries. You're quite welcome. Alice in Wonderland. This earthly life that we're living is nothing in the grand scheme of eternity. You can only pray for these money-hungry people. Yeah, that's all you can do, because they're trying to build bigger barns. And we know what happened to the guy that said that I have all that I need. Let me rest and build bigger barns. Oh, good. So Ellis found both of them out there. So you can bookmark those and watch those. These are the things that I like you all to do. When you get off, or maybe the next day or two or the weekend, instead of watching, and I shouldn't say foolishness, the things that I don't like to watch. I don't sit there and watch sports. I don't watch a whole bunch of movies. And what is that? What are those people that have cable? Hallmark and Lifetime or all that stuff like that with those. I would cringe when I see people just spending hours. Like when I used to get my hair done, the girl used to sit there and have Lifetime on or Hallmark on all the time. And I would just try to, just close my eyes. And sometimes I would be bold enough to put earplugs in because I didn't want to hear it. But my new loctician, we sit there and watch documentaries together. Mark, somebody, he's really bad. He's really bad. So I'm not really sure who this Mark person is that's really bad. That doesn't change the guy's truth. I don't know who this Mark person is. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to go into the next area, and that's the Centers for Disease Control. And, they're headquartered right here in the Atlanta area. So C-19 exposed the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as perhaps the most incompetent and arrogant agency in the federal government. CDC continuously misguided C-19 from its lethality, transmittability, and its origins to treatments. Like I said, these people aren't holding any punches. We were told masks were not needed. Then they were made mandatory. And then they go on with a whole bunch of stuff that we were told. And I'm not going to get into that, but it says the CDC should split into two separate entities, housing its two distinct functions. On the one hand, the CDC is now responsible for collecting, synthesizing, and publishing epidemiological data from the individual states, a scientific data gathering function. This information is crucial for the medical and public health researchers around the country. On the other hand, the CDC is also responsible for making public health recommendations and policies. An inescapably political function. At times, these two functions are in tension or clear conflict. These distinct functions should be separated into two entirely separate agencies with a firewall between them. And I agree. I totally agree with that. So the CDC has a bad name. We're going to talk about conflict of interest. There was a time when the CDC could not make money from the pharmaceutical industry. But in 1992, the agency discovered a loophole in the federal law that allowed it to accept pharma contributions through the nonprofit CDC Foundation. The money started flowing immediately. From 2014 through 2018, the CDC Foundation received $79.6 million from pharmaceutical corporations like Pfizer, Biogen, and Merck. This practice presents a stark conflict of interest that should be banned. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. This is how drugs that don't work get passed, get into people's bodies, and start doing stuff that destroys their bodies. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next organization, which is the National Institutes of Health, another one on that list. The National Institutes of Health is the world's largest biomedical research agency and is made up of 27 different components called institutes or centers. I always wondered why it was the National Institutes of Health, and that's why. Despite its popular image as a benign science agency, the NIH was responsible for paying for research on babies that haven't come out yet. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Baby body parts, human animal experiments, and gain of function viral research that may have been responsible for C19. It's almost like, and I just thought about it, you know, I used to play Monopoly a lot when I was younger. And then everybody supposedly starts out at the same spot. And then you get a few people that, you know, hit a lucky space on the board. And then they start getting houses. And then they start changing those houses in for hotels. And then all of a sudden, if the game keeps going on until the end where nobody else has any money, that person rapidly starts gaining everybody's money because they start buying these houses and hotels and putting them on different streets. And you have no choice but to land wherever you land. So when you land on a place where they have a hotel or a place where they have a house, then they get to take your money. This is what all this is like. All of these people way up here, however they got up here by hook or crook, or whether they work themselves up. And I'm not saying everybody up here is corrupt, but a lot of these people have turned into those folks like Sir Topham Hatt, you know, the guy with the top hat, and just stealing money left and right. It just makes no sense for either the CDC or the National Institutes of Health to be raking in all this money, and they have incentive to do us wrong. Conflicts of interest. The National Institutes of Health maintains inappropriate industry ties that create serious conflicts of interest. In 2018, it was revealed that a $100 million NIH study on the benefits of moderate drinking was funded by the beer and liquor industry. Come on, y'all. More recently, the NIH, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Anthony Fauci's division of the NIH, owns half of the patents for the Moderna C19 vaccine. Let me read that one again. More recently, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Anthony Fauci's division of the NIH, owns half of the patent for the Moderna C19 vaccine, among thousands of other pharma patents. Rather than providing grants to university-based investigators to run the clinical trials on their own, the Moderna vaccine, the NIH conducted its research internally. How about the fox watching the hen house? A clear conflict of interest. And the Institute of Infectious Diseases will earn millions from this vaccine's revenue, with several NIH employees and their heirs So the rich are getting richer and enriching their heirs, personally receiving up to $150,000 a year from Moderna vaccine sales. How many of y'all are mad like I am about this? This is corruption at its finest. This is corruption at its finest. So the solutions that they have for this is they need to break all of this stuff down. Both programs should be managed so that the individuals enrolled are empowered to make decisions for themselves and have equality, quality options. No, that's, I'm sorry, y'all. I was on the wrong. I skipped a page. I missed a page. So basically, that was it for the NIH. The NIH needs to be broken down, and just like the CDC, all of the corruption will be exposed if the conflict of interest goes away. So the first video that I told you about that was on the Tucker Carlson, that guy gave some solutions at the end, which is separating all of this out. Stop letting these pharmaceuticals give money to these university professors that come up and then they go into the pharmaceutical world. And how many of you know, put a one in the chat if you know somebody that's on more than 5 drugs. I'm not talking about herbs and things like vitamins and minerals. How many of you, put a one in the chat if you know somebody that's on at least 5 different drugs? And I bet you they started off on 1 or 2, and then they had to go on a 3rd one and a 4th one and a 5th one, and they're just complying with this. Somebody in the chat tell me the number 1 cause of death. I think it's still the number 1 cause of death in the country. It's got to be the number 1 or the number 2. Yeah, Democratic boomers. I think that's what they're saying is the people that are on all these medications because they believe everything that the doctors and the government say. Medical error. Exactly. Channel 23, honey badger. Medical error kills more people than just about anything. That is a shame. And giving people the wrong medications, cutting off the wrong leg in surgery. And I know that's a horrible one right there, but the medications that people get have side effects. And the situation that I dealt with this week, and the reason that I didn't come on more than today, was a medical situation where somebody was given a medication and it caused a different problem. So they had a surgery for the first situation, and they had to have another surgery because the medication that they were taking caused another situation. So other relatives had to come in town, and like I said, I was helping out with family. So this affects us all. The next one I'm going to go to is, well, before I go to the chat, before I go to the next section. Yeah, when you, yeah, heart attack, then doctors. That's probably it. It's I heard one of them say lung cancer on one of the 2 documentaries that I told you about. One of them was talking about lung cancer, and even though smoking has gone down, lung cancer is still number 1. And it depends on who you ask, but these are in the top 5, and medical error is in the top 5, definitely. Don't assume they're all smart. Yeah, don't assume that they know what they're doing. I like herbal doctors because I can check behind them. I can go online and I can look and see what these herbs do and how they affect me. And I have lots of herbs. I don't have any prescriptions, but I have lots of different herbs that I take. Just like I said, in my garden, I have oregano, rosemary, lemon balm, and so on in the garden. So what I do is I dry it, and then I put it in tea balls and put water in there and sometimes lemon. And during the pandemic, I was all in that oregano. Y'all know about that oregano. So let's see. I know 3 people, one being my mom, exactly. They clearly hide that from us. They clearly hide all of it. The liver cleanse protocol is basically anti-aging. Yeah, we need to do cleanses very often. Gov, Corp Watch, the fact that they don't push cleansing is telling, because we're already putting garbage in. My mother used to say garbage in, garbage out. We're putting garbage into us, sometimes unbeknownst, but cleansing really helps. And people go to people do other kinds of cleanses, like I forgot the name of that, the colon thing, the colon cleanse. They go to, I've been to those where you go a couple of days in a row and you get on this thing and get your colon cleanse out, your intestines and all that, whatever. It's kind of gross, but it's helpful. We need to do that very often because the things that are going on in our body. And then if you can't go to one of those, then you can get certain products that will help you cleanse yourself. Medical errors are higher in the US than international, I'm sure. They say drugs last 1 to 2 months after we stop them. I found them to take 2 to 3 years to get drugs out of my system. I think that might be by design too, because some people like with smokers too. If you smoked a long time, then it's still in your system. When my grandmother was ill and she went to the doctor asked her how long she had been smoking, and she had never smoked. But guess who was smoking? Granddaddy was smoking. So that was all in her system, just enough to where he would ask her how long she'd been smoking. Detoxing spring and fall is a good way to remember. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, spring and fall would be good. Yep, herbs are the keys to life. They were put on this earth for us in these trees and all of these things in the backyard, and everybody, these people in the medical industry want you to pay, so they'll go get something and they'll synthesize it and make you pay what they said, something about $200 a pill. I feel bad for these people, and they're after all these desperate people who are very ill, but they don't say stop eating all of that pork, stop eating the vegetable oils. And I don't even use that anymore. I use olive oil and avocado oil. How did you tell it took that long? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, answer that. Let's see. The liver cleanse actually removes the fatty tissue and fatty liver. That is excellent. So if you have a good brand for a liver cleanse, please put it in the chat. If you found one that was really good. I have an overall cleanse that's more of a detox and a candida tox. But if you have a good liver cleanse, let's share that with us. I recently stopped taking about 6 prescribed meds about 3 months ago, and I feel 100% better, 1,000% better. Excellent. Colonics, that's what it is. So I've done colonics about 3 times, maybe over the past 10 years. Stops 2 or 3 medications. Excellent. That it's very good. And your doctors are, I don't think you should go off of that. And if you replace, if you're missing something in your body, it's out there in nature somewhere. And the internet is good for looking stuff up. And also a lot of the health food stores around here, if you talk to the people, they're very knowledgeable. The 2 that I go to, they're not just salespeople. They know their stuff. So I'll tell them, well, this is what I'm experiencing. And they say, try this. So, they automatically assume that older people are going to have high blood pressure issues, where there are some herbs that you can take on a regular that will cause that not to be the case. Let's say it takes about 2 years for the liver cleanse to really kick in, but it can take many, many, many years. Well, it depends on what all of that gunk that you put in there. The Yummy Doctor from Canada will tell you how to use castor oil and DMSO for liver cleanse. Is that a YouTube person? That may be YouTube. YouTube Parasite Cleanse. That's what I've have. Metal Cleanse. I have that also. You can also get the sauna red light. I like to take the cleanse that I have now. Woo! It's bitter herbs, but they work, and they make you lose weight, because I need to lose a little bit more pounds. One of the drugs had weight gain. I stopped the drugs, and it wasn't until 2.5 years after that the weight gain stopped. Wow, that's how it's a metabolic thing. They get in your system. I agree. I agree. If your metabolism didn't return to its normal function for 2.5 years, there are some good people in the medical industry, but they get swallowed up with the bad a lot of times. uh, so there's some recommendations about parasite cleanse, and Wellness Mama shares recipes for liver cleanse too. So yeah, I got some good recommendations down in the chat for this. Let's see. Amazing liver and gallbladder flush. Okay, that's really good. So we're going to talk about Medicare now. Medicare should be reformed according to 4 goals and principles, and this is what they're saying. Medicare, they should increase Medicare benefits control. I'm sorry, increase Medicare beneficiaries' control of their health care. So the theme that I see in this document is the people should have control over their health care. And I believe that. Reduce regulatory burdens on doctors. So the regulations that doctors have with Medicare, they should be reduced because they take a lot of time with paperwork. They should ensure sustainability and value for beneficiaries and taxpayers. The Medicare system, and I did a video on this not too long ago, is just, I mean, it seems like a lot of things the government puts their hands on, it just turns out to be a mess. So some of the regulatory reforms, Medicare regulations restrict choice of coverage and care. The next administration should reintroduce and restore regulations and demonstrations from a previous administration that were withdrawn, weakened, or never finalized. So there are some things that were put in place to kind of shore up Medicare and make it more professional. And you know, when we're in this political arena and the way our government runs, you know, somebody can come into office, and then you got Congress, and you've got the Senate, and then you know, every 4 years things can change. So somebody can come up with something great, and then it'll last 4 years and it'll be taken away. I'm glad that there was a provision, and right now my mind is blank, but in for the business people, there was an additional business deduction. So, example, if your business netted $100,000, then you were originally supposed to pay tax on $100,000. But that provision put in by the Trump administration gave you an extra 20% off. So instead of paying tax on $100,000 that you netted, you pay tax on $80,000. And that's something that helps out the small business person, really. And so these kind of things should stay. And then, you know, but then the other provisions that hurt people, that hurt the middle class, should go away. Because if you remember, the small business is the backbone of this country. It keeps things going. And then the more you hurt small business, the more the economy hurts. So 2020, 2021 really, really, really hurt small business. It had them closed down while Wally World and Lowe's and Home Depot and all those and Costco and all those stayed open. And even bars were open and churches were closed, and it was so arbitrary, guys. So they need to add a work requirement, they're saying, and match Medicaid benefits to the beneficiary's needs. I do believe that. Because Medicaid serves a broad and diverse group of individuals, it should be flexible enough to accommodate different designs for different groups. For example, CMS should launch a robust personal option to allow families to use Medicaid dollars to secure coverage outside of Medicaid programs. So you got Medicaid dollars, but you got horrible service with Medicaid. That's not good. Allow private health insurance. I like that idea. Congress should allow states the option of contributing to private insurance benefits for all members of the family in a flexible account that rewards healthy behaviors. This reform should also allow catastrophic coverage combined with an account similar to a health savings account for the direct purchase of health care and payment of costs. Bottom line is, it's great for you to be in charge of your own health care. Wealthy people can go to any doctor they want to, anytime they want to. The private sector runs so much smoother than government, because government is just a big bureaucracy and you get caught up in it. But the people that are able to operate in the private sector and get the care that they need, there's competition there. The reason why the government doesn't work that well, because there's no competition. They don't have to compete against anybody. Out in the private sector, all of these companies have to compete against each other. So let me go back over to the chat. There's some more recommendations for cleanses. I'm seeing miracles in my health for the liver cleanse, removing toxicity, enabling the liver. The gray hair is even getting back to black. Okay. All right. Getting color back. All right. Detoxing isn't always painless. Fatigue would be adrenals. Yeah. Detoxing isn't always painless. I agree. I agree with that. I'm a witness to that one. Back to the gold standard. Yeah, that would be great because, but doing that would take away the power and the wealth of all these people who have worked their way up on our backs to get there, and then they'll try to find a way for us not to get that standard back. Healthcare is a minefield now. It definitely is a minefield. The poor people, they just have to take what they can get. The middle class are struggling with very high insurance premiums. You all wouldn't believe how much my insurance is per month. And the older you get, the more it costs. And I don't smoke and drink and all that stuff, and it's still very high. But in a way, I believe I'm paying for myself and other people, if you know what I mean. So we got one other area, I think, and it's called TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And I'm not thinking this is the welfare. I'm not even sure it's the same name, but I'm going to read what it says about this program, which also falls under DHHS. TANF, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, is a federal block grant that gives states significant flexibility to fund a broad array of programs aimed at helping low-income families break the cycle of poverty and achieve economic self-sufficiency. States use TANF to fund monthly cash assistance payments to low-income families with children, as well as a wide range of services that include work activities, work supports, and supportive services, child care, administration, and systems, tax credit, pre-K, Head Start, child welfare, and other services. So maybe this is the what they call the welfare system. Okay, so what they are recommending, the TANF priorities are not implemented in an equally weighted way. Marriage, healthy family formation, and delaying procreation to prevent pregnancy are virtually ignored in terms of priorities. Yet these goals can reverse the cycle of poverty in meaningful ways. So what I see it saying here is they want to regulate getting the money. They want people to get money based on implementing certain maybe criteria for it. In a way, this is almost asking the questions, should we regulate morality? Because these things are, hey, if you want this money from the government, then you have to do A, B, and C. Put a one in the chat if you believe that people need to follow certain criteria in order to get government money, and put a two in the chat if you think they shouldn't have any criteria. I'm looking at what it says here. It's 8 million individuals are using this. Generally, states apply their work requirement only to beneficiaries receiving basic assistance. So this document is saying they're not even required to work, some of them. So yeah, one in the chat. I do. People run around saying, well, we can't regulate morality, and you can't regulate morality. But think about this. If you have a family member that's asking you for some money, and they're saying, oh, I don't have my rent money, and you got plenty of money. You yourself have plenty of money, and I don't have any rent money. And this particular family member tends to like to spend a lot of money on, uh, I don't know, they tend to go to the movies 3 days a week. Now you have a choice. You're going to say, okay, well, Joe, you don't have any money because you know the words to every movie that comes out when it comes out. You spend your money on what you want to spend it on, and then you turn around and ask those of us in your family for rent. I tell you what, I'll help you if you stop, spending your money, and you sit down with me, your cousin, and let me help you do a budget. And if you follow that budget, then I can help you. Well, that's okay, because I don't, yeah, that. So when you're asking me for money to let you do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, you're asking for my money, but you want to continue to operate in a manner that's going to have you broke all the time. So looking at it from that standpoint, if there's government money which comes out of your pocket, if you are paying into the tax system, should the government say yes to certain things and no to certain things when it's doling out money? My personal opinion is yes, they should say no to certain things. If you're going to get money and you're able to work, then go to work. I thought of a program before where there was, single mothers, they could go and learn a skill while some of the elderly people that didn't have anything to do took care of the children. So the children would be given wisdom, they will be cared for, and that mother is not sitting at home watching TV. Because again, when I see, I'm a little bit, I know what's going on in the community here, and sometimes the children are not cared for. You can see, I've seen women with their hair done, nails done, everything did, and their children running around looking like they need to be on some kind of care commercial. Those things bother me because that's where your tax dollars are going. She's getting money from the government. She has 3 children. She's sitting at home watching television or doing whatever. She's not really feeding them. I know somebody that's works in the school system here, and a woman brought her child to school. She had on those fuzzy house shoes, and then demanded that they give her child breakfast. Now breakfast is like from 6 to 7:30, and the woman brought the kid in at about 10 o'clock. So she got her lazy behind up out of the bed at around 9:30, drug the kid up there, and demanded that they gave him breakfast. Now, this is a systemic problem, especially in my community, where you got these kids having kids, and a document like this offends some people, but it's not offensive to me in so many ways. If you're getting money from the government, in other words, if the money was coming direct from me, yeah, my sister, you got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You got to get your kids fed. You got to, iron their clothes, comb their hair, for goodness sake. They got lint in their hair, and you got your bonnet on, and up under that bonnet, you got your hair laid. So these are the kind of things that me personally understand in this document. Now, there may be some underlying stuff in here that people don't agree with, but I do definitely understand that. Wow, let's see. Yes, your tax dollars do go towards all of that. Yes, we want to make sure two things though. On that side, we want to make sure that those are taken care of, but we want to make sure that our tax dollars aren't going for those elite people to do all kind of schemes, like this whole banking thing. The thing that happened in 2008, where the tax dollars bailed out those people who took all of those risks and put those packages together with those home loans that weren't sustainable. That's on the other spectrum of taking tax money. All that has to be regulated. They don't want to regulate that part. Well, this document does, because remember I talked about it. But they don't want to talk about the fact that these corporations are taking a whole bunch of money, tax dollars. There are so many tax breaks for corporations also. Homeopathy, yeah. There is no tax dollars. Grace Commission report proves it. None of the money from income tax goes towards running the country. So the Federal Reserve gets most of that money, and your money is going to the Federal Reserve. Non-auditable private banking cartel. Your money goes out. It does fund some projects or some of these programs, but for the most part, it goes to pay the interest on the national debt. Yeah, well, whether it comes out of my check or not, I'm trying to argue. You know what? We need to keep our money. So if you keep it, then they can't put it in any of these places. Yeah, it's hard to help people who don't want to help themselves. You can't help people who don't want to help themselves. You just can't. I've tried that before. And it's like I really saw that this person had potential. I tried to help them, and I was basically rejected. So that's when I learned you can't help people that don't want to help themselves, no matter how much potential you see in them. Anyway, so I'm going to get off. It's about 9 o'clock, and I have a lot going on. Of course, I have the challenge, and I didn't put that in the chat, but not next week, but the week after that, we have the Escape the Rat Race Challenge, where I will literally be teaching people how to make $5,000 a month. I'm going to put that in the chat now. Did I write that right? EscapeTheRatRaceChallenge.com. So that's where we get detailed. I get into detailed knowledge about how you get multiple streams of income going. So you can start out with one, or you can start out with two, or you can build on them. So some people start something, get that top spinning, and then start another one. And then that's where you can kind of break off. And if money slows down in one, you still have another one going. So this is what I'm trying to teach, because like right now I have multiple streams of income. I have rental property here. I got a rental property in Costa Rica. The one here is more stable. It has some money coming in every month. Then the one in Costa Rica has lately been having money come in because people are staying there. And then I have, the clients and all that stuff. Like if we want to have all that going just in case something happens and we still have something, and then we want to put money aside for investing, and want to have that money in your savings so that you can have some cash ready just in case you need to shovel it out. You also want to know how to protect your money. So I'll be teaching all those things in detail. And the people that join at the platinum level will get to ask me questions. So for less than the price of one of my hourly consultations, you get 3 days with me on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evening. I know most people have a job that they have to go to. So it's going to be 7:30 to 9:30 in the evening. So I will see you guys next week. I'll try to see if I can get to maybe one or two more of these, which I think I didn't do housing. I think we have one more, housing, and then we'll start getting into some other topics. So you all have a wonderful weekend.